one of her first webinar of this school year with us, and so we're very happy about her progress and what she's been doing so far. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. And as she said, she will get you a certificate of attendance for this 1-hour webinar. If you would like one at the end of it, just email calpro@aar.org. And today we have with us the amazing, the fantastic, the fabulous Kathleen Porter, who is the Executive Director of CTE and Adult Education for Poway Unified School District. Kathleen is also a member of the CALPRO Professional Advisory Board, and she does a number of things in the area of professional development to help us here at CalPro be successful in meeting the needs of the field. And she's an expert, obviously, in career pathways. And we are very, very excited that she has agreed to do this presentation and facilitate this session with you on career pathways, what you need to know. It will be a great session, very informative, opportunities for you to talk and ask questions, and we know you'll enjoy it. So with that, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Kathleen Porter. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you, Cherise, and hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon. To start out, I'd like to get to know a little bit more about who's in the room, and to that end, we have created a roll poll, and I just want to pull that up. And if you could just indicate over here what your primary role is in your agency. Are you an administrator, a teacher, a counselor, support staff member, or do you have another role in the agency? I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds to indicate that for us. So it looks like we have about 70% of us are administrators and the other 30% are counselors, and we don't have folks from other roles. So the next question I wanted to ask you all, just to give me a sense of our audience, is how many of you are participating in an adult education consortium? If you could do that just by raising your hand using that little person icon. Okay, so it looks like almost everyone. I have 18 people with their hands raised right now, so almost all of us are participating in an adult education consortium. So that's very helpful. Thank you. So as Cherise mentioned, I'm Kathleen Porter, and I work in Poway Unified School District. Poway is a large suburban school district in North San Diego County, and although we're a good-sized school district, we have about 36,000 students. We have a relatively small adult school. Our district, like probably many of yours, has been working on career pathways and post-secondary transitions for years. And I will say that we haven't arrived. It's an ongoing process. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. This is just part of our practice. So one of the questions we have for you today is to tell us a little bit, when you decided that you wanted to participate in a discussion today about career pathways, what was it that you were hoping to learn? And so you can see that we've created a chat pod here. If you can just type directly in here, we want to make sure that we are addressing what it is that you wanted to learn. Oh, and meanwhile, if you still have your hand raised, if you could put those down, it would be great. So Lisa says she wants to find out how others are doing it and what we might be missing. Jessica's interested in new ideas for career pathways. Lori's interested in research-affirmed practices and what might have been successful at other adult schools. Gladys, hello Gladys, is learning about, interested in learning about new career pathways available in the 21st century. Veda is looking for current statistics, careers, and employment trends. Margaret would like to improve upon our process and see what others are doing. Trina wants to see if we're on the right path in regards to our career pathways. Carolyn, how to identify entry points into pathways with good outlooks and what course offerings support those entry points. Okay, interesting. Carvette needs new ideas about establishing collaborations and where to start. Terry's interested in funding, training, job placement, and hearing from students about perspectives. Okay, and Melinda's interested in methods to use career pathways within a consortium. Yelena contextualized ESL classes to support students in careers. Lauren's interested in helping students transition more easily from adult school to career training. Tara, new ideas, current needs, strategies for success. Yes, okay, so Lynn talks about the phrases used in multiple ways and in different programs and wants more clarification about how it specifically applies to adult ed. Overall information regarding career pathways. Janine is interested in learning what's successful for others for improvement, what works, what doesn't, new ideas for business and industry partners. Okay, so I think that gives us a good idea of some of the things that you all are interested. I see Robert's typing, okay, and you're interested in knowing, Robert, what should every career pathway program include. So we're going to look at some of those elements. So in the time that we have together today, we'll be spending some time defining career pathways themselves, and we'll also have a chance to examine what some of the quality indicators for pathways are. We'll take a look at some of the reasons that career pathways have come to the forefront and note the state and federal commitment to career pathways. Finally, we'll have a chance to collaborate with one another about strategies used to implement career pathways and partnerships that can help strengthen career pathways. So I think at the end of our session, if we kind of come back to this list or if you remember what it was that you were looking for and we didn't hit on any points, that might be the time for us. I know we're going to be a little crunched on time, so I'm going to try to push forward. We did set some objectives for today. We have 3 stated objectives, and we hope that at the end of the session you'll be able to identify the elements of the quality career pathways. You'll be able to determine strategies and examine potential partnership opportunities that will help to either create or strengthen your agency's career pathways. So I think, Lynn, it was you that mentioned that there are lots of different definitions floating around for career pathways. And so one of the things that we wanted to take a look at are some of the phrases or words that come to mind when you think about career pathways. So if you could just indicate in this chat pod some of the ideas, what things come up when we talk about career pathways? What do you expect to see? Okay, Robert talks about skills. Trina, programs of study. I see a number of you are typing. Sequence of courses leading to certification in a specific area. Good. A program that allows students to move ahead to further training or get a job now. Progression of classes to obtain a certificate. Transitions from one program to another. Transitioning into the workforce. Funding. Real-world experience, Lauren points out. Bill talks about the ability to honor adult learning from work experience and skip components to accelerate through sequences. Good. Linda talks about courses and certification and transition to employment opportunities. Carvette talks about the requirements to achieve certification. Terry talks about possible cohorts, iBest or support for ESL and basic skills needs, counseling, wraparound services, different pathways to the same job announcements and labor statistics, work-life balance, Veda talks about. So I think this gives us a good idea. I see Bill still typing. Okay, to keep this discussion separate from the old career pathways that have been so long-standing for ROP routines and to customize it for adults. So very good point, because I think one of the things that we'll discover is that career pathways, when you're talking about 9-12 career pathways, look very different from what we want to see for adults. And so let's just kind of move forward here. I pulled a variety of different definitions because, as we've discussed, there are a lot of different definitions floating around. And in the K-12 setting, a career pathway might be very different and implemented very differently from an adult setting. So the first definition that I took a look at, let's see here. It's going to cut for me. Okay, so this is Wikipedia's definition, is that it's a workforce development strategy that's used in the United States to support workers' transitions from education into and through the workforce. So I like this definition in that it talks about this really being a workforce development strategy. I also like the emphasis on transitioning not only to the workforce, but through the workforce. Another definition that we pulled here, a series of structured and connected educational programs and support services that will enable students, often while they're working, to advance over time to better jobs and higher levels of education and training. So this definition comes to us from the California Community Colleges and the Career Ladders Project. And here we see the concepts of the connected educational experience and the importance of supportive services to help students transition through pathways. So the U.S. Departments of Labor, Education, and Health and Human Services define a career pathway as a series of connected education and training strategies and support services that enable students to secure industry-relevant certification and obtain employment within an occupation and to advance to higher levels of future education and employment in that area. So in this definition, we start to see industry relevant or recognized certification that many of you had mentioned. And so we know that anybody involved in Perkins, the CDE is working on a list of industry recognized certifications for our state. And I also understand that WestEd is working on developing a similar list for community colleges. So California's Education Code and the State Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act both define career pathways as an identified series of positions, work experience, or educational benchmarks or credentials with multiple access points that offer occupational and financial advancements within specified career field or related fields over time. And so in this definition, we start to see this multiple access points called out. And we're introduced to the idea of a metric being a student's financial advancement as a result of participation in a pathway. So this whole notion of being aligned by design at both the state and national level, groups or agencies are coming together around career pathway. And these groups are actually modeling the collaboration and partnership that's needed at the regional level in order to develop and strengthen our own career pathways. For example, the U.S. Departments of Education, Health and Human Services, and Labor wrote a joint letter of commitment to career pathways. The letter explains that it is their hope that this federal partnership focused on career pathways will be emulated across the nation and expanded in states and local areas. In the letter, they call out that their intent is to encourage states and local areas to improve coordination and collaboration across the public workforce, adult basic education, career technical education, and human and social services systems. Then we have the California Department of Education, the California Community College Chancellor's Office, the California Workforce Development Board collaborating around career pathways in a variety of ways. Probably the most notable would be the California Career Pathways Trust Grant and the development of the California Workforce Development Plan. And then in June 2015, we've got the Association of Career Technical Education, the National Skills Coalition, and the National Association of State Directors of Career Technical Education Consortium, who jointly developed a white paper that's called Realizing Innovation and Opportunity in WIOA, Aligned by Design. And they're really linking career technical education to WIOA and talking about how collaboration can enrich both programs. So this is just an excerpt from that joint letter that the U.S. Departments of Education, Labor, and Health and Human Services put out. And you can see that they've made a joint commitment to promote the use of career pathways. And not only is there a commitment to career pathways, but there's also been significant investment in career pathways as an approach. So you know at the federal level, WIOA in Title II, career pathways are referenced as a strategy in 6 different sections. And at the state level, look at all of these different grants and bills that are focusing on pathways. Again, probably the most notable is this California Career Pathways Trust Grant, which was funded at $500 million. It's the largest state investment in career pathways in the nation. And I know that many of our adult schools are participating in those California Pathways Trust grants. So some common themes that start to come out of all of these grants and initiatives. One is regional responsiveness. And so this really means that partners in the region are deciding who and how best to solve the problems of the region. Leveraging resources, and then alignment, which includes not only aligning program offerings and services so that students can transition seamlessly through education to the workforce, but also includes aligning program offerings to the regional workforce development needs. And all of these things are really designed to address persistent skills gaps, promote college and career readiness, and ensure that we have a well-trained local workforce. So what does all that mean? What does it mean, and how do we create these pathways for our adult students? So in the current, just a minute here, let me come back. Okay. So in the Career Pathways Toolkit, this is a resource that was developed by the Social Policy Research Associates, and it was developed for the U.S. Department of Labor. They identified 6 key elements, which I'll just pull up here now. And these 6 key elements are to help guide state and local teams through essential components necessary for developing a comprehensive career pathway system. And so if any of you, actually it looked like almost all of us were involved in AB 86 adult education planning. So these 6 steps will look incredibly familiar to you. This is essentially what we have done as we've done our planning for AB 86. And these particular elements, although I think they're alluded to as quality elements, these are really systems level. So this would be how one system interacts with another system. So as you think about interacting with your community college or with your local workforce development board. So the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways, this is a group that was established through the Center for Law and Social Policy, CLASP. They've defined these 3 essential features of quality pathways, and I think these are more relevant to us at a program level. So the first one is well-connected and transparent education, training, credentialing, and support services. And so this is really to facilitate progress along the pathway and ensure that participants get credit for their education and experience in the future. So it's this idea of really having somebody at your site able to understand the nuances of different delivery systems so that when we're advising our students, there aren't any wrong turns or dead ends, that they're really getting credit for the work that they're doing and that it's all aligned and working towards some goal that the students have. The next one is multiple entry points so that students are able to begin at the most appropriate skill level. And I think when we talk about these multiple entry and multiple exit points, that's really where we see a departure from implementing career pathways at a high school level. Because here we're talking about tailoring it to a particular student's needs so that students can start at a place where they are. And then this idea of multiple exit points is really so students can enter the workforce at various milestones and easily return to education when they're ready, either between jobs or while they're working. And this is essentially referring to the ability of students to stop out and stop back in, if any of you remember that from learner persistence study circles. So when life happens, students can leave education, get a job, and then return to education without losing ground. They don't have to start all over again.
Kathleen,
So the
Kathleen,
current draft.
Kathleen, I'm sorry to interrupt. Before you go on, there was a question in the general chat on transparent education on the previous slide.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Cherise, for pointing that out. So Carolyn, I think transparent education is really more about transparent educational processes. It's really making sure that the customers in our system, the students in our system, know how choices are going to lead to other choices. So they need to be informed about how is this going to impact financial aid? Will it impact financial aid? How do these credits transport from this system to another system? Those kinds of things. Does that help? Okay, great. So, you know, the California Unified Workforce Development Plan is out right now for public comment. And so they define successful pathway programs in our draft plan. And these are just some of the elements that they identified. So this idea of varied and flexible means of entry, exit, and participation. And the way they describe it is multiple on and off ramps for students through innovative scheduling practices. Another point they talk about is having it be student focused so that the entry and exit points are determined by that individual student's needs. Flexible exit points allows those who cannot complete a longer-term program the ability to build longer-term skills through short-term serial efforts. So maybe they can do stuff on the weekend, or maybe they can do things at 2-week intervals, but creating a system that will allow any student to participate. They've also defined pathway programs that they would have a high degree of program alignment and service coordination among relevant agencies, which include adult ed, basic skills, community college CTE programs, high school and adult school CTE programs, workforce development board, and social service agencies. And then here's this idea again of these industry valued credentials. And we haven't really defined what industry valued credentials are, but as I said, I know our CDE and I know the community college districts are both working on identifying that list. Employer engagement to ensure that training and education are relevant to the labor market. That's that alignment piece. Yeah, Lisa, I see your comment here that distance learning allows for multiple entry and exit points, and it certainly does. So at this point, I know I've given you a lot of information, and we wanted to give you a chance to consider and apply some of the things we've talked about. So first we were going to think about some of the strategies of quality career pathways, and I was going to pull up a chat pod here and give you a chance to think about what strategies you're implementing or could you implement that would be related to one of those 3 quality program indicators. So let me pull up that screen for us. And so if you can just type if you know of something or if you're considering something related to innovative scheduling, alignment of programs and support services, or engaging employers, anything like that, if you could just take a few minutes. I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes because I know we're running a little late today. And just give you a few minutes to type if you know of anything. I know some of you are still typing, but I'm going to go ahead and start summarizing some of the things that we're seeing here. So under innovative scheduling, we're seeing blended classes. Let me pull this back up. Oh, the Burlington English has specific career units, online and flexible hour classes, scheduling classes in both the morning and in the evenings, IBEST courses, let's see, evening schedules for medical assistants. So lots of these scheduling issues to accommodate needs of working parents. Let's see here. I think we hit everything. Oh, and using Moodle for some of the high school subject classes. And then under alignment of programs and support services, we've got added counseling hours. Looks like a number of us have mentioned that. Partnering with a local one-stop to support a business engagement specialist to support students getting workplace and employment or externships. So actually both under employment engagement and this alignment of programs and support services, there have been a lot of mentions of internships and externships. Looking at the NEDP, so that's the National External Diploma Program, I believe, to support CTE and ESL students. Opening a one-stop on the adult school campus, more adding counselors, aligning curriculum for adult schools and community colleges, creating a transition specialist position to support programming regionally for students, trying to align our curriculum with local community colleges, so more of that curriculum alignment, developing soft skills rubrics into all CTE classes, picking the right careers so students are not wasting time. They actually know what they want to do and are working toward that. The support services with babysitting, especially in the evening classes, and then placing classrooms on the one-stop location. Then over under employment engagement, so Bill mentions working with the Workforce Development Board to build new training venues. An advisory board to meet with faculty. I think a couple of people talked about that. Bill, you're working on stackable certificates, which is exactly what I think some of the best practices are talking about that. Let's see. Interns, we talked about externships. Creating a position called an employer and community relations representative. So, and the whole purpose of that position is just to create those relationships, having a trade advisory committee meetings twice a year. Let's see, prepping students before sending them to a job fair. Partnerships with CTE programs in health-related fields, partnership with employers, and having a career fair on site and notifying students of other career fairs and opportunities. So that's a pretty awesome list. Let's see, Leave talks about inviting local employers to biannual meetings at the school. So all of that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, essentially what we're talking about with innovative scheduling is just that idea of having those multiple entry, multiple exit points, offering our programs at times when students can access them. When students have to stop out, it doesn't mean that they have to start all over again at the beginning. In terms of alignment of programs and services, I think it really is about having somebody whether it's a counselor or whether it's somebody that has been hired to be a coach or a transition specialist who really understands the systems. That's their job, is to understand the different delivery systems, and so that person can help students navigate without wasting time. And then all the employer engagement stuff is really aligning our offerings to what's going on in the work world. So the next thing we wanted to take a look at is having you sort of apply your thoughts to partnerships. So what are some of the likely agencies and organizations that you could engage with to develop or expand your career pathways, and what are the roles that you'd like for them to play? So if you want to take a minute, I'm just going to do maybe 3 minutes on this one so we can stick on our time schedule. Take a minute and think about this. I'm just going to give you a minute to read over some of these responses and see if anything here really stands out to you. Just take a few seconds to scan through this. I see a number of you are typing. Yeah. So Sharon likes Leaf's idea, working with libraries for expanded ESL and GED programs, Chamber of Commerce, 1 or 2 committed agencies. Perfect. I don't want to rush you. Yes, I like the Chamber of Commerce idea too. Okay, good. So I'm going to move us forward. I'm just driving us through here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to open things up to some questions and closing thoughts. We're getting toward the end of our time. We've got just about 7 minutes left. So anything that you wanted to ask or a closing thought you wanted to bring forward, I will point out here that when you get the PowerPoint, you'll see that there are some references and resources that you can access. I also have my contact information at the end of the PowerPoint. And so if you'd like to upload the PowerPoint, you have an opportunity to do that here over in the little file share, easy for me to say. So Carvette talks about we have lots of ideas of what we want to do, but at times we feel like we can't find the time to persist. I don't know if anyone has any ideas about that. I think what, I find that I need to schedule the time to do that. We have regular meetings to talk about initiatives that we're trying to implement. So whether it's monthly or quarterly or every 6 weeks, I think that if you just set the time aside, that's about the only way you can do it, because you're right. Bill talks about information you've shared about perspectives for career pathways for adults is exactly on target. Thanks for confirming your thoughts. Do we have the audio of this meeting? We did record the meeting, and so I believe we can make the audio available. Will you confirm, Jennifer, that that is true?
Yes, the audio will be available by recording, and there will also be a web transcript of all of the chat. Or it's going to be available in a Word document that we'll send out.
Okay, and so Lisa, that will answer your question. That's what you'd like to do. And Charisse, yes, we've got the website with the audio. And how do we tie the training programs we have to meet the Perkins requirement? Now, will you tell me which Perkins requirements you're talking about, Trina, that you're struggling with? Catherine, I see you're typing. Oh, thank you. So Catherine says the online video library will have both visual and audio for this webinar within approximately 1 week for today. And Trina, you're giving me some feedback on the Perkins requirements that you have some questions about how to meet. Oh, yes. Isn't that interesting, Trina? So what you're seeing is that best practices for adult career pathways are really not compatible with the model that has been described in our state Perkins plan, which has completers that are based on an annual plan. And I think that is just kind of a disconnect that we have. And I think that it's probably something that Carolyn Zachary, who's overseeing the Perkins unit, could talk with us about. I think we just need to show her that. I know that Russ Weichel and Carolyn have been involved with the California Workforce Development Board as they've been creating the plan, and that I know I was at the AXA conference, and I believe many of you were as well, and during that presentation, one of the questions was about this disconnect. And so the California Workforce Development Plan really is describing this kind of open entry, open exit system. And so I think our Perkins unit needs to take another look at it for adults. With high school students, it's easier to see how somebody can progress through a pathway 9th through 12th grade. You've got 4 years with students, etc. But in the adult ed world, it's a whole different story. I see a couple of you are still typing. We've got just about 2 minutes left. At this point, I usually turn things over to Cherise to close. I see a number of you are still typing. Oh, Cherise says her mic is not working.
Well, mine is, and I will come on and say thank you very much, Kathleen, for this wonderful presentation, and I think we should all give Kathleen a round of applause, and you can do that with the raising little hand. There we go. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Please make sure that you fill out the evaluation at the end of this, and we will also have everything available on your emails when we get that together. And thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And we're going to be turning this meeting off, and you will see a link to the evaluation at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.